Honda Canada just hit the brakes on its $15 billion EV plant in Alliston, and the financial ripple effect is just beginning. While the headlines focus on the indefinite suspension and shifting global demand, Brandon Smith breaks down the real-world impact on the Canadian insolvency marketplace. Brandon dives into why Honda's first-ever full-year loss changed everything for Alliston, the zombie supply chain, what happens to Ontario manufacturers who retooled for an EV boom that isn't coming, and financial survival, how auto parts suppliers can save their company and restructure as a result of a major customer changing its plans. I am Avatar Ira Smith, president of Ira Smith Trustee and Receiver, Inc. We are a true family business. We are not for everyone, but if we take you on as a client, we will treat you with the utmost of respect, and our guarantee is that you will always deal with a licensed insolvency trustee, not a clerk and not an assistant. So if you have any questions at all, either about this video or anything else, give us a phone call. We would love to speak with you. I hope you can watch until the end of the video and you find the information helpful.
Welcome back to The Explainer. So, if you're tuned into the manufacturing sector, especially right here in Ontario, you know things can shift in the absolute blink of an eye. Today, we're breaking down a sudden severe pivot in the industry, the recent strategy shift at the Honda Alliston plant. We're going to unpack exactly what this means for Ontario's auto suppliers, how it creates a really specific type of financial squeeze, and most importantly, the clear structured steps you can take to protect your business. We're taking the raw data and turning it into a real survival roadmap. Okay, let's dive into this. So picture this. It's May 14th, 2026. Honda's global CEO, Toshihiro Mibe, releases a statement in Tokyo, and it instantly becomes an inciting incident for Ontario's manufacturing sector. He announces the indefinite suspension of the Honda Alliston EV plant. The reasons? Changing market conditions, slowing EV demand, and a shift in global strategy. But look, for local suppliers, the corporate reasoning matters way less than the reality on the ground. This announcement sent massive shockwaves through Ontario's green economy, leaving so many operations that had geared up for this giant project staring at a sudden halt in production. I know your time is valuable, so here's our quick roadmap. We'll cover the Honda Alliston shockwave, the resulting financial squeeze, restructuring paths like the BIA versus the CCAA, protecting directors from liability, and finally, we'll introduce your guide through all of this, Brandon Smith. Let's get started. Starting off with Section 1, the Honda Alliston shockwave, a $15 billion project on hold. Now, I really want to address you directly here. If you're a local manufacturer, this isn't just an interesting news story about trade policies or consumer demand. This is a crisis. You probably hired staff, expanded your facilities, and took on significant debt to meet the just-in-time requirements for this massive EV battery project, right? When a $15 billion anchor project like this gets shelved, the burden falls directly on the Tier 2 and Tier 3 suppliers who form the crucial links in that supply chain. Suppliers in this sector often operate on incredibly thin margins, and a paused project creates what we call the double whammy effect. First up, you have stranded capital. That's money locked up in highly specialized EV tooling and equipment that you literally cannot easily repurpose for hybrid or traditional combustion engine lines. Second, you get a contractual void. The forecasted revenue you relied on to service the debt you took on to scale up is just suddenly disappeared. It's an immediate, intense financial squeeze. Which brings us to a critical question we really need to consider. What happens when the anchor retreats? Well, when the main customer cuts production, the smaller links feel the strain the absolute hardest. Suddenly, you're staring at idle assembly lines. The banks start calling. Equipment leasers start getting really nervous. The pressure mounts incredibly fast. Moving into Section 2, the financial squeeze effect and navigating that pressure. And Section 3, restructuring paths. The BIA versus the CCAA. Before we look at those paths, we really need to completely destigmatize this situation. Supply chain shocks happen in business all the time. An event like the Honda Alliston suspension is entirely outside of your control. So when the pressure from banks and lessors starts, it absolutely does not mean you have failed as a business owner. When a corporation can't meet its financial obligations because of a shock like this, yes, it's considered legally insolvent. But here is what you really need to take away. Insolvency is just a legal status. With the right tools, it is definitely not the end of the road. It's actually the beginning of a reorganization. And the most powerful tool in this entire process is the stay of proceedings. Think of this as your ultimate breathing room. Under the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, or BIA, when you file a notice of intention to make a restructuring proposal, this legal shield is immediately activated. It legally stops all lawsuits. It halts equipment seizures. It freezes collection efforts instantly. This is the exact mechanism that gives you the time and space you need to stabilize operations, keep the lights on, and actually negotiate with your creditors without a gun to your head. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it contrasts the two primary restructuring paths here in Canada. It's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure based on your company's size. On the BIA Division 1 side, there's no minimum debt threshold, making it absolutely perfect for small to medium enterprises. It offers an automatic 30-day initial stay, and honestly, it's generally a lot faster and less expensive. Now, on the other side, the CCAA is for larger operations carrying over $5 million in total debt. It's highly customized, deals great with complex international cross-border issues, but it's definitely more costly and court-intensive. But here is the crucial part for both scenarios. The directors stay in control of the business.
Let's look at Section 4, Protecting Directors from Liability.
This issue of liability is often the most urgent, keep-you-up-at-night pain point for any business owner. Because when the corporate cash flow dries up due to a massive project getting put on ice, the threat doesn't just stop at the factory doors. There is a very real threat to your personal assets. Look at this warning carefully. In Ontario, directors can actually be held personally liable for specific corporate debts. We're talking primarily about unpaid HST and source deductions, your payroll taxes. If the Honda Alliston shelving caused a cash flow crisis that forced you to miss those payments, the Canada Revenue Agency can and absolutely will look past the corporation. They can come after your personal home, your savings, and your investments. But acting quickly with a formal restructuring proposal under the BIA or CCAA can literally stop the clock on these specific liabilities and protect your personal financial life. And let's be honest, you shouldn't be trying to navigate that minefield alone.
Which brings us to Section 5. Your guide, Brandon Smith. Navigating this high-stakes environment requires a real expert. Brandon is the Senior Vice President at Ira Smith Trustee and Receiver, Inc., right over in Vaughan, Ontario. And look, he is the go-to restructuring person for any company caught in a financial squeeze because their main customer decided to cut production.
Getting that expert help is actually a surprisingly straightforward three-step process. Step 1 is simply a free, totally confidential consultation with Brandon. As a licensed insolvency trustee, he brings the cutting-edge legal expertise required to navigate these tricky laws, paired with genuine compassion and clarity to look at your specific numbers. Step 2 is formulating a clear, actionable plan tailored exactly to your supply chain realities. And Step 3 is filing the notice of intention to activate that legal shield we talked about. And restructuring isn't some dirty secret. That's actually a good thing. For auto suppliers, engaging a professional like Brandon to restructure often signals to your customers, the original equipment manufacturers, that you are taking responsible, proactive steps to ensure your long-term stability. So the crucial point is captured beautifully in this philosophy from Ira Smith Trustee and Receiver, Inc., starting over, starting now. When you sit down with Brandon, the focus is entirely on practical solutions, not blame. Remember, the market shifted on you. The goal here is to restore your control over your business, fully protect your personal assets, and ultimately give you back your quality of life without any judgment. It's all about looking forward.
If you're facing this exact squeeze, you need to take the first step before your options start to narrow. Reach out to Brandon Smith directly. His team's contact information is right here. Give them a call at 905-738-4167 or the Toronto line at 647-799-3312. You can also just email him directly at brandon@irasmithinc.com or visit irasmithinc.com. The absolute key is to have this conversation and formulate an actionable plan right now before a receiver is appointed by your creditors.
I'm going to leave you with this final, really important thought to ponder. The anchor may have retreated, but you still have a choice. Will you let financial uncertainty and bank pressure dictate your future, or will you reach out to an expert like Brandon Smith to take back control today? The tools exist to rewrite your company's story. You just have to pick them up. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Protect your business, protect your assets, and stay proactive out there.